U.S. President Joe Biden has announced punitive sanctions against 500 targets in Russia in a fresh effort to counter what he called Putin's war machine. The measures also seek to punish Russian officials for the death of dissident politician Alexei Navalny last week. Targets include people connected with his imprisonment, as well as individuals involved in supporting the war, including the defense and financial sectors. Let's bring in DW's Janelle Dumoulin, who's in Washington, D.C. Janelle, tell us more about these latest sanctions.
Yeah, so earlier we actually heard Joe Biden talk about these sanctions in a speech at the White House. He reiterated that the White House does blame the Kremlin for the death of Alexei Navalny and that these sanctions are in response to them. Now, these sanctions, of course, are the single largest tranche of sanctions imposed on Russia in a single day since the war started, as he said. It includes over 500 targets, including two of Russia's biggest companies by revenue, a supplier of specialty steels, as well as a military logistics company. Now, it also aims to target the financial sector in the form of targeting Russia's national payment system. The point of these sanctions is also to cut into Russia's oil revenue, as well as crack down on sanctions evasion enablers around the world, in Europe, in Central Asia, and in the Middle East. Now, of course, these U.S. sanctions come after the EU has announced their own sanctions, as well as the U.K. And the hope is really that this coordinated effort helps to slow down Russia's war machine at a time where Ukraine is running out of ammunition, and we've reached a stage of the war where both sides really do appear dug in.
This is by far not the first round of sanctions, though. Have previous measures shown any sign of impacting Russia and the man in the Kremlin?
Well, if the point of sanctions is to trigger a change in behavior or to really deter Putin's ability to wage war, then these sanctions regimes have not been as effective as hoped. Now, it's worth noting that Russia, of course, if there's one thing it knows how to do, it's how to deal with sanctions. There's been sanctions regimes in place since 2014. Also worth saying that Russia's economy has held up considerably well despite these sanctions. The International Monetary Fund saying that Russia's economy is expected to grow faster than it had originally forecasted this year. Russia's war economy also appears to be working quite well for the country in terms of boosting defense production. However, none of these are an argument against sanctions for Russia. This is, of course, an important sign of solidarity for Ukraine. But of course, what would make a bigger material difference is if Congress would pass the billions of aid for Ukraine currently languishing in the House, blocked by Republicans.
But a lot of people in Ukraine would agree with you on that. That is DW's Janelle Dumoulin in Washington, D.C. Thank you so much.